Party with your host, Dustin Rybka.
Hello and welcome to Sex Party. I'm your host, Dustin Rybka. This is episode 75 episodes of Sex Party. Holy fucking shit. My guest this week is going to reflect that. She's someone I wanted on the show for a very long time. Alexa Bowditch. She is the founder of Sex and Love Co. She is one of the great voices on the internet around intimacy, sex education that we have today. And she's here on the show. I couldn't be more excited. We're going to talk about her origin story, how she got started in this work. We're going to talk about the power of becoming self-aware, the trauma that we all have that sort of drives who we become. Alexa is a soon-to-be mother. We talk about that. And at the end of the episode, Alexa goes to the burner and answers the question, what is wrong? What is the biggest crisis facing sex today? So listen, it's a big episode. It is a valuable episode. Let's get you to the interview. Without further ado, this is my conversation with Alexa Bowditch.
This week's conversation.
Alexa Bowditch, welcome to Sex Party. I feel like this is a long time coming. I have chased you on the internet. My listeners, my viewers will be like, geez, this guy chases a lot of people around the internet. But with you, it was very special. When I started Sex Party, you were one of the people on my short list that I really wanted to have because I just think what you do is incredible, but there's a value to it, which we'll get to. But I'm going to shut up because for the people who don't know who you are as well as I do, could you talk a little bit about who you are and what you do?
Sure. And thank you. You know, it's a long time coming. And I had faith that if our stars were going to align at some point, then I would get to grace your show and have a metaphorical sex party with you.
Right.
So, you know, my story is, I want to say it's somewhat unconventional, though I think a lot of people relate to it. I grew up in deep South Louisiana in a very Catholic-ish environment, Catholic-ish when we were Catholic when it was convenient and depending on who my mom was dating. And so I grew up believing and thinking that sex and love and relationships and my purpose in the world and life as a woman or as a young woman, it all needed to look and feel and be a certain way. It didn't work out for me that way. I traveled extensively in my 20s. I lived on cruise ships for almost 6 years, dated a lot, fucked up a lot. Eventually kind of went through some ebbs and flows with relationships and understanding myself and my self-worth and eventually finding my way into personal development. A couple years post getting out of an engagement, that was a relationship that showed me all the things that I will never put up with and never stand for myself and with regards to another person ever again. And then ensued the, if that's the case, what needs to change from within me. So I found my way to personal development. And of course, I'm giving you the cliff notes here. But from then found my way to meditation, yoga, mindfulness, health, fitness, nutrition. I went into how do I access my higher self? What does that even mean to me? How do I get more purpose? Like, how do I feel more purposeful in my life? How do I lead my life with more intention? And that was really powerful for a while, but I realized pretty quickly that it wasn't directly translating into my sex life and how I was navigating relationships. And through a series of really interesting meetings, I was introduced to consensual and ethical non-monogamy. And then I was introduced to kink and BDSM and explorations in that regard. And it started my journey of, wait, hang on a second. There's a whole other area I'm not looking at that I can be growing and developing in. And if I peel back the curtain over here, if I intentionally double down on what's here for me as a sexual being and my relationship to my sexuality, that then changed my life. It completely transformed all the areas of my life. And so I started blogging and podcasting and then eventually coaching. And so, fast forward 6.5 years later, and my now husband and I run a company called Sex and Love Co. You said you've had some of my staff on the show. So we have, my husband coaches with me. We have multiple team members that are sex, love, and relationship coaches, therapists, healers, teachers, mentors in their own regards. And we all essentially, we're on a mission. We coach together and we coach separately, and we're on a mission to help people just understand themselves more when it comes to their sexuality. Because for a lot of people, it's got a big question mark on it, and we really want to demystify it and help people explore a little bit more of the taboo, like what's edgy for them, and show themselves, like create an environment where they can show themselves that they're safe to explore and to want more and to get more and to understand what the more is from their intimacy and from their sex lives. So it's kind of it in a nutshell.
I mean, I love the nutshell. There's a ton there. And before I even jump backwards in time, we're going to take a little trip back to your youth for a second. But before I do that, I do want to say your company, Sex and Love Co., there's a lot of companies on the internet that deal with sex and intimacy. And a lot of people who run those companies, part of those companies, have been on this show. They're all amazing. They're all wonderful. They're all incredibly brave, intelligent people, right? But there is something about you and your company and the people that you've chosen to employ that reminds me personally, it just has that thing. And I don't know, it reminds me of like early days of Apple, where it's like, oh, there's something special happening here. Well, I'm not sure what or where it's going, but fuck. And then 20 years later, bam. So like with you, it just, even the content you make, which we are so getting into, because I think it's fucking gorgeous.
Oh, thank you.
And very helpful and insanely fun, right? There's something about you and the company and what you choose to put out. So I really want to encourage people to go and check out all of your stuff. Now, that being said, so when you're young, deep South Louisiana, right? Were you like the fucking wild child? Were we turning up AC/DC all the way and like stealing the Camaro and like having sex with like whatever? Like, did you feel pulled to be rebellious and sexual, or were you like totally the opposite?
So I think I tried to be the latter. I tried most of the time to be what I thought everybody wanted of me, but I didn't have any of this truly wholesome, well-rounded, I wasn't a kid that was I didn't have people in my life that were very present with me. So my mom is, and I love her dearly. And she knows that, like this is a part of my story, is that she's been married 5 times. And she found what I would say is true love at 50. And so my stepdad is actually her longest relationship that she's ever been in. And she's like 65 or 66 now. And that's her last marriage. And we love him so much. But before that, she was trying to figure it out as a single mom. Those relationships she was in didn't last long. And I grew really to just distrust men. And I spent a lot of time alone. And so it was just kind of like back and forth, like I wanted so badly to swing the pendulum the other direction and not do things like my mom did. And then I put that on a pedestal and was like, that's what's going to give my life meaning and purpose, is if I just don't do it like she did it. And that didn't work. It really didn't work. I'm a lot like her in a lot of ways, because I would have one going out and the other one, one's barely out the door and the other one's on his way in. And so I never had an issue with, like having a boyfriend or not having a boyfriend. But choosing to value myself in those things, with regards to the Catholic upbringing, I didn't realize that, some of the ways that I was treating my body as a kid were actually a sin until I went to Catholic school. And so I learned pretty early on that I shouldn't trust my body and that I shouldn't trust pleasure, and touching myself was not okay. And so it was really just a clusterfuck of varying rights and wrongs. My body said one thing, but this system says this thing. This is or isn't modeled for me. And then, being in a small, I'm from right outside New Orleans. So I wasn't blasting AC/DC, but I was blasting Lil Wayne, and I wasn't stealing the Camaro, but like a super jacked up, like lifted Silverado, Chevy Silverado would have been more the thing that we were doing donuts in like the fields, kind of thing.
Yeah.
So
sure.
I'm, I have my own version of what you kind of outlined there. And so I was a little bit of both of the things. I did in the end have a high school sweetheart that I started dating my senior year of high school, and we were together all the way until the end of college. And so I tried hard to still fit in the box, even when everything in me was like, do everything that's outside of the box. So, and I had to go in and out trying to fit in that box several times before I was like, I just need to make my own fucking box.
Yeah. And you did, and you have, right? And here you are with your own box, no pun intended, whatever, right?
Sure.
But like you created the space that that could be like the worst, no pun intended, I've ever said on the show. But hey, we're only in season 2, guys. Well, and also too, I want to say, that wasn't a knock on AC/DC or Camaros, because I love AC/DC. Lil Wayne is equally rebellious. I'm just trying to like paint that picture of like leather jacket, like fuck you, whatever. You said something really incredible, and I'm wondering if it's a thread that maybe leads to ultimately what got you to where you are now, and that is that your body was almost like saying or like demanding certain things, feeling certain things, but then like religion and everybody else with a goddamn opinion was like saying, no, that's wrong, right? Like, how powerful is that? Because at the end of the day, in doing this show, being completely unqualified and just wanting to do this show, it keeps hitting me like in the face over and over again that, we have these desires and urges and thoughts and things that we masturbate to, and things that we want to masturbate to, or we want to do with other people, or whatever it is that's coming internally. And yet society and all these goons on Instagram are like, that's gross, give up this, and don't watch porn, and that Smurf cartoon is not for you, or whatever it is, right? And it there is like conflict there. So I'm wondering, did that idea of absolute like internal desire, curiosity, and then the pushing against it make you just want to like blow that all up?
I don't know if I consciously thought that I wanted to blow it up. I mean, to me as a kid and going into, adolescence and then into young adulthood, I still very much tried to keep it all together, until it really and just true. And I'll say Alexa for fashion. I'm the baby of the family. So, like I have had a dramatic flair my whole life. Yeah, until it kind of all fell apart, and then I was able to piece it back together in a bit more of a mature way. But I'm, as an adult now, so I'm 34. I'll be 35 this summer, and pregnant with baby number 1. So I'm in a transitionary period right now that I've never come up against, in my life, but I have spent all the way until, 34, figuring it out, getting really used to, what makes me, getting, developing in my self-awareness and my ability to communicate things that have happened, and traumas and triggers and offenses and all the things. Even as where I am now, and I think that I might be on some level, I might be working with this for the rest of my life. And hopefully I'm able to gift my children a bit more of an open mind and open perspective. But I will probably be forever working on listening to myself and listening to my body and trusting myself, because that was basically the thing that lodged in, is that I'm untrustworthy and I can't rely on my body cues, and I shouldn't have faith in myself, essentially, and listening to myself. And so at times in relationship that has had me, maybe in a bit of an intuition, or something doesn't feel good or something doesn't feel right, but because I've been getting this message that I shouldn't trust what my body is showing to me and I shouldn't trust the things that I'm feeling, I have said yes to things I didn't want to say yes to, or no to things that I probably should have said yes to. And so I don't feel, any kind of way about those things in the past, but I notice how that even comes up today when I've done a lot of work on this, and I so badly want to work with my children in the future and really imprint on them, listen to what your body is saying. And at the same time, you're going to go through periods of time where there's these things called hormones that are going to just like go haywire. A little boy, when they're in utero and they're developing, their testes, and they're developing their penis and they're becoming a boy, their brain is swimming in testosterone, like so much testosterone that literally makes them into a boy creature, and has the pieces and parts of a boy. And the testosterone levels are not that high ever again in a boy's life, in a man's life, until they're going through puberty. Their brains are literally swimming in testosterone. They don't know, like, can I trust myself? All these urges. And to me, it's like if and a young woman too, I mean, we have high testosterone too. It's this major sex drive hormone, but we also have surging hormones and also have a sex drive. And also, it's at this time where we want to be flirty and we want to be coy and we're testing the boundaries. And what does this mean? And, and so they're also going through their thing too. And I think I touch on the boy thing first because that's what we're having. And so my husband is very excited about that. He's like, oh, my future basketball player. I'm like, that's not going to happen for like a long time. You will not have a little one to play basketball with for like years. But I guess he's down for the whole journey. But anyway, the difference, my hope, I haven't had a kid that I've raised yet. So my hope is that I can just share with them the reality and share with them the truth and share with them just, compared to what I got, share with them anything at all, So I've actually, we have a podcast too. And episode 1 was my mom. And she's just my favorite mom of my whole life. She is now, since becoming a grandmother, since getting a little bit older, finding her like really grounded love. And I said, so Mom, one of the questions I asked her was, do you remember the talk that we had? And she said, what talk? I went, well, that's very telling. I'm like, I literally sat you were sitting in a chair. I sat on the arm of the chair and you said, do you have any questions? And I was like, no, can I go back to my room? And it wasn't even about sex. It was about periods. And by that time, I already knew all the things that I thought that I needed to know, and children are at this point, the average age, it used to be 11. Now it's 8, where a child sees porn for the first time, a version of porn. And so, we've got to be present with them. We've got to be present. We've got to, there is such a thing as age appropriate, but porn in and of itself is not 8-year-old age appropriate. So we're going to have to make some changes here, and so, all that to say is that I didn't have anyone that was present with me to teach me these things. And the sad part is that the vast majority of the people that I have met in my life didn't have it either. Their parents got less than they got, and so on and so forth through history, and their grandparents and all of that, And so I think it's not rocket science, these pieces and parts insert part A into slot B, and then at some point you get a baby. So like people know how to have babies, but that doesn't necessarily mean that they know how to embrace their sexuality. That doesn't mean that they know how to work with their eros. That doesn't mean that they know how to, like, what to do in order to be sexually satisfied or to encourage their partner to be sexually satisfied. It just means that you know how to procreate. So it's kind of went off on a couple tangents there, but it's big.
I mean, it's a podcast. We love tangents, so like continue to go off on, and I'm grabbing little pieces as I do. And first of all, I want to say congratulations on the pregnancy.
No,
so cool that it's a boy.
It would have been cool if it was a girl too.
It would be equally cool if it was a girl, right?
Cool if it's a girl too.
Yeah. But that's very, very cool. And so I guess my first question, right, is everything you said so eloquently, and terrifyingly in a way, in a shade. Everything that you've gone through as a woman, as a person, with your mother, with your life, right? Everything that you have learned, taught, relearned, retaught, all of that as a whole, what scares you about being a mother and coming into this world with the way that the concepts of sex and intimacy are laid out in front of us now? Well, I mean, is there something that just like makes you afraid? Like, shit, I hope I do this, or what? If I, you mean, obviously, probably a ton, right? But like, as far as sexuality, human sexuality, intimacy, connection, pleasure, as someone who's going to be a mother, I mean, what just absolutely like
I can't say that anything in particular with regards to the sex love relationship piece. I mean, this is my husband and I. This is our work, you know, and so. And, you know, I have this remarkable relationship that I am so proud of. You know, the way that I describe my relationship with Jordan is that this is the greatest achievement of my life, you know, and hopefully our children will be my next greatest achievement in life. But our relationship is pretty remarkable. And I think people, when they meet us, you know, they might see us online and think, oh, I bet they're cool. But then they meet us and it's real. And that's to me, I'm like, I want this to be real. I always want to walk our talk. And I want for us to surround ourselves with people that consistently reflect to us ways that we might be able to do better and to celebrate us whenever we're at our highest. And of course, you know, hold us whenever we're at our lowest. And really just get true community support. And then the way that we show up for each other. So, you know, I'll just say that I'm very proud. And at times I'm surprised, like all the work that I did, because, you know, Jordan and I both had the odds stacked against us to have a relationship like we have. So his mom's also married 4 or 5 times. Both of our biological fathers left when we were 3. So neither of us had a steady male figure in our lives. He had a little bit more than I did, but still both of us grew up. I grew up, let's say, with just enough, and he grew up with financially, and he grew up with barely enough, sometimes not enough. And so for us to be entrepreneurs, for us to have what we have and function the way that we function is quite literally a miracle to me. And so to me, I'm like, if we can do it, anybody can, you know, it's kind of like that. And then with regards to our future family, you know, we waited. I mean, the small town I grew up from, I know people who were in grades below me that have like 4 kids. You know, we waited until a certain level of maturity, I think. And that was a choice that we made. Of course, it comes with its own trade-offs. But that was important. I wanted to be ready on an emotional and spiritual level to do this. And, you know, and a bit of the sacrifice is that, you know, on a physical level, things might not be quite the same as they would have been for me 10 years ago. But I mean, so far, so good. But, you know, that's again, the trade-off. So with regards to then having our future family, I'm not really scared of anything that they could do or that I could, you know, I'm going to fuck up. It's just my own version of it. And I'm pretty at peace with that, you know, but I'm not going to fuck up in some of the ways that the people who raised me, and I'm using air quotes, fucked up, because they did the best that they could with the resources that they had available. And I love them for it, you know? And so I think for a lot of people, the things that were really not great that happened to them, you know, victim to circumstances when they were children or whatever the case, even into adulthood. I think a lot of people would say, okay, that thing was really bad, or those things were bad. And I have all of this beauty to thank for it. It's like these fucked up blessings. You know what I mean? Where it's like, oh, I learned resilience from this. Oh, I learned grit from this. Oh, I learned to take care of myself and stick up for myself or whatever. But it also comes with shadow. Like a lot of those things come with shadow as well. So, regarding our children, it might sound really weird. I say this pretty much only to my closest friends. So hopefully this doesn't sound super strange, but like, I think of our future, like our future son. And like, if you have a daughter that's around our future son, like you want them to meet. You want, I mean, any kid, but it, you know, and of course I'm assuming he's straight, but at the same time, like, I mean, we can just say like, that's the vast majority. So if it's, you want them to meet mine because mine, hopefully if I play my cards right and he listens, he'll have great communication skills, even according to his age, and he'll be respectful and he will understand boundaries and he'll ask great questions. And my hope is that when he goes into those situations, even if it's for the first time, he feels empowered. I won't keep anything from him with regards to information, even though he might not want to hear it from mom, but dad's got the information too. And so do all of his aunts and uncles, our best friends. They have it as well because I'm in their lives. So, I have this faith that, he's going to grow into a young man. And my hope is that people feel, other people that he interacts with feel really good about the interaction. My hope is that if there's heartbreak, that he knows how to support whoever he's dating or himself in ways that, like, I had no idea. I grieved alone. And it was definitely grief at 15, 16 years old after having sex for the first time and getting broken up with over AOL Instant Messenger. I was so fucked up from that, and my mom, she just came in one time and was like, "You're really sad." And I didn't want to talk about it. I'm just crying in my bed. And I think she understood why I was so upset about this particular one. But that was basically all the consolation, the consolation's the word, but consoling that I got from her. It's kind of like, and now we move on. I really want to be there for them so that they feel like they're making empowered decisions for themselves, even if they're trying something for the first time. And I actually think that they might wait. They might wait to do some of those firsts because they have more knowledge, more awareness around them. So, I'm not scared of them. I'm not scared of the pregnancy thing. I'm not scared of, because my son's going to know how to track a female cycle. Yeah. He's going to know. He's going to know. Now, I still can't guarantee that, a young man with young man hormones is going to understand how to pull out. That usually takes practice. But at the same time, like, I definitely want him to, if you're going to interact with someone, this is how you're going to keep yourself safe, is by asking her where she's at, when's her period, here's the range, you got to be careful, and so and again, that's my hope. Granted, a 16-year-old is going to do what a 16-year-old wants to do. I'm not worried about STIs. The majority of them are no big deal as far as I'm concerned. But I still want to make sure that he feels safe, or they feel safe, if we wind up having more than one. And I want to make sure that the people that they interact with also feel really, really safe with them and safe to come to us as parents. Now, I don't know. I feel like I'm pretty cool now. I don't know how cool I will be when I have teenagers.
I don't think anybody knows how cool they'll be. They think they're going to be cool. No. And then,
Yeah, I don't think it's going to happen. I think it's going to be like cringe, and we're going to figure it out. I've got like a vagina, I have a vulva puppet. I've got a whole shelf of sex toys. I'm going to be that mom. Like, people ask me, they're like, well, when your kids grow up, are you still going to be that sex chick? I'm like, I don't know. Probably, I'm still going to have a company that's focused on intimacy. Mm-hmm. But, I don't know if I'm going to allow like my 2-year-old to just like walk in or, come into my office and like just play with a bunch of vibrators that are hanging out on the shelves.
Yeah.
Though that would be kind of cute.
Yeah. And I mean, I think, again, I'm so grateful to have you here to ask. And I'm glad that we somehow arrived through the magic of Sex Party. We arrived at this motherhood piece because, there's so many moms, single moms that I know of that are friends of mine or people around the show that are so affected by their own childhood trauma that not only are they worried about bringing a life into the world, but like what happens once they do decide to do that. And I think, normal people don't have the training and the brain that you have, and they just know their trauma and haven't worked through it. And, same for men, obviously, but obviously I think it's different obviously for women because they're birthing someone. So there's that fear there. So I really wanted, you to ring in on that, because I think there's no better person to ask, because they're just, it does seem to be this generational thing, like we sort of touched on, where like the great grandparents like did some weird shit happened, and then it's okay to he's allowed to beat his wife or whatever the craziness is, and then that gets passed to the grandparents and the grandparents to the parents, and then here we are with all this like weirdo stuff that nobody wants to talk about. And every piece of society is like, hey, here's an Instagram full of ass, but if you say the word ass or whatever, you're out of here. So it's like this real strange sort of look, but don't look. But if you touch, you're allowed because you're a man. Maybe don't go to jail, skip, take $200 and skip whatever. But like, it makes no sense. And so as a mother, I think that a lot of people are scared because of everything that I just said. So thank you for ringing in and like, putting the hammer down on it a little bit.
Yeah. I think people, no matter what, this is like beyond sex. This is beyond all of that. Like everybody's got some level of trauma, that they grew up with or that they experienced. And this is just like a blanket statement. You are not a victim. You don't have to be a victim. Mm-hmm. You could classify as you were a victim to what happened. You were a victim in that moment when a thing happened, but you don't have to live your life as a victim to what happened to you. You know what I mean? And so healing is possible. And whatever that journey looks like, it's usually not pretty straightforward. And it's usually something that a person's going to be working with for their entire lives on some level. But the deep work is self-awareness. If you don't want to pass this stuff on, then you have to have a certain level of self-awareness and a certain level of personal responsibility and the role that you play in how that translates into the way that you interact with all relationships. First and foremost, the relationship you have with yourself, and so your life changes when you do that deeper, more personal work. And the closer that you get to you, the closer that you get to yourself, the more possibility winds up opening. And I think generally speaking, I think people feel less trapped by their circumstances. And a single mom's already at a disadvantage. You know what I mean? That's a really big deal. So anyway, my extra two.
Well, can you give them something tangible to, let's say someone's just sick and fucking tired of being a victim. They're wallowing in it. They feel sorry for themselves. That's cool. Great. You do you, right? But they're tired of it. They're finally reached a place where they're like, I don't know what to do. I feel a certain way. I'm angry at my mom. I'm angry at my dad. Maybe there was abuse mentally, physically, sexually, whatever it is. But someone is at a place where they're like, you know what? I want my fucking life back. I want a piece of my life back. What's the first step?
I think that's probably going to be different for a lot of people, but you have to kind of take, from where I stand, I think you need to zoom out and take a look at your life at large. Mm-hmm. And who are the people that you have in your life? Or are you lonely? Do you not have anybody in your life? And then, take a look at the relationships that you have around you. Take a look at how you spend your day. Take a look at the food that you choose to eat, the drink that you choose to drink, and realize that all of these things are a series of decisions that you have made. And, it doesn't feel good to hear this is your fault. And there's something as far as I'm concerned, there's something very empowering in that, because if it's something that you have created, it is something that you can choose differently. And choice, while it may be hard, is still something that you can do. You can't just snap your fingers and the trauma's gone or whatever, and it disappears. You can be working with that and working on that. And I can give you some things that you can do in order to start opening those things up. But the first thing that you have to decide is that you want something different. And then you have to show up for it. So, if you're super lonely and you want community, then you have to go out and make friends. And that's very vulnerable. To me, that was harder than finding a partner. I was like, I know how to date guys. I know how to not be single. That feels pretty easy to me. But when it comes to female friendship, man, I had some fucked up shit happen when I was a kid that just really hurt. You know, I had Alexa's a slut written really huge on the side of my house when I was like 16, and it baked all day, the words into the paint on the side of my house. And then when I got home, I had to tell my mom, military mom, a military stepdad at the time, not the one I have now, very rigid. I had to tell them that this was written on the side of my house, most likely by girls I was in school with. And if it wasn't girls, it was boys who was playing off of a feud that was between the girls. And we pressure washed it off the house, except because it had been baking in the sun, stripped the paint, and it still said huge on the side of my house until we could paint it again. Now, as an adult, that translated to women are not trustworthy. We are competition. I'd much rather be friends with men. This isn't worth it. Like, women are catty. This is bullshit. Have all these things. But guess what? There's a short list of the things that have been the most impactful and healing for me as a woman. And one of the things at the top is having deep, intimate female friendships. And that's something that I realize as I go about this work, that the majority of women that come to me, they've been burned and they're avoiding, and there's so much healing to do there. Like, who do I need to be and what do I need to face in order to be vulnerable with a group of women or to have friends, you know? And so I just tell that story just as a marker of like, if you're looking at your life and you're miserable and you're like, wow, I'm lonely, then you have to be willing to face your fears and be vulnerable in front of people that can reject you and essentially toughen up. Like, the world isn't fucking kind, you know, in a lot of ways. And it's so beautiful. It's worth it. And I think there's this interesting coddling that's happening of the American society and the American mind, which is a book, Coddling of the American Mind, and with woke culture and these sensitivities and all these million pronouns and all this, just this woke culture that's just like, guess what? It's fucking tough out there. And it's what you make it. And so you have to zoom out and you have to say, like, what actually matters to me? And where do I really want to find my place? You know, and if it winds up that your health is declining, then that's an area that you have to go into. And then if it winds up that you need to take general personal responsibility for how you're showing up. So you have to cut relationships out. You have to stop seeing certain family members as much. Essentially start choosing you.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And that's actually something you can do something with versus I'm just woe is me. I'm just a victim to all these circumstances. Life is so hard. I can never get out of this.
Yeah. I mean, everything you said is just fucking spot on. I would expect nothing less from you. But like, just from my side of things, you know, I became self-aware a couple of years ago, and it was incredibly difficult to do. But like, my favorite thing is to be like, this is my fault. All of this is my fault, whatever, because you're right. There is a level of like Superman power in that, being like, oh shit, not only can I now change it, but I'm aware that everything in this life is a consequence of my decisions. Mm-hmm. That's giant. And I think that you're dead on when you say that's the first step, is to take steps to become, you know, more self-aware and kind of own your own shit. Cause when you own it, nobody else can. And that comes in handy too, when you have like fucking trolls on the internet that are like, cause I get them all the time, obviously. And I love it. I actually think that I might have a problem, because I'm starting to love the hate almost as much as I love the love, and I'll always take it and make content out of it. It's like someone's like, your show sucks, or your lips are too big, or your hairline's receding, or you're a fucking idiot. You know, like those things, I will screenshot that, say something that's almost like non-argumentative, almost agreeable to it. Yeah, well, you should see this or whatever, right? Sure. And put that out as content, and people will like flood to it, like, oh my God. So for me, becoming self-aware, when you realize that it's not you, it's them, but you need to address it and live with it and accept that people aren't going to like you, and accept that whatever. That's so giant. That's amazing. The other piece, because, you know, to go along with this self-awareness is it's really, it really is hard out there. Like
Yeah.
the world is a really incredibly difficult place, as you said. And I'm wondering, in that difficult world, you mentioned back when we talked about your origin story that you went off, traveled, right? Got out of Louisiana, I'm assuming.
Oh yeah.
And you had some meetings in this difficult world that changed your perspective and your view on sex, and you were introduced to non-monogamy. Can you talk about that? Because I think that's like a giant, huge piece of not only self-awareness but your origin story.
Yeah, thank you for that. I mean, I think what's really important in the whole self-awareness, like under that umbrella too, is to me, what wound up being really important over time is deciding that I wanted to be a person who could change her mind. And meaning I wanted to be open, what does it really mean to be open-minded, and of course, open-hearted as well. But, so I wound up like just a couple of books at this time. So I lived on ships. So I was on cruise ships. And over 6-ish years, visited 79 countries. And so I was exposed to a lot of people do things differently in different cultures. And so that was like, holy shit, that was huge. That was like my first like wave of personal development, I would say. Because I was essentially a minority in the crew members. There was only a handful of Americans out of many other different cultures that were represented. And so eventually I was given a book, The Power of Now, which you might know, Eckhart Tolle. I didn't read it right away when it found its way to me. But then eventually I was like, you know what, I'm going to read this. And it was the first domino in a lot of ways, as far as the like, moving the needle in this journey. I read Code of the Extraordinary Mind. When I was living on ships, I couldn't watch a lot of things. I was limited to how much access I had to internet and all those things. So I would go into port and I would download books and audios. And then over the course of my traveling, then I would listen to them, and, and on ships, we would trade around jump drives and like share movies and different things. And so I went through a period of time where if it wasn't good for me, I didn't want to do it. I didn't want to listen to it. I didn't want to absorb it. And it was an agreement that I made with myself. But that was after, and I'll just say that was after realizing that I'd gained like 30 pounds and drinking almost every night. And then eventually getting dismissed from one of the cruise lines because I was breathalyzed and I blew over the limit. So I had to hit a rock bottom, like physically, emotionally, mentally, spiritually, all of that before I was ready for any of this. I had to hit the bottom. I had to flail around there for a minute. And then I had to go, okay, something has to change. And that's how I know, like, it is a series of decisions, and it's tough, so Power of Now and Code of the Extraordinary Mind. And then eventually there were some other ones in there that eventually I met someone who gave me, Sex at Dawn. And Sex at Dawn, it was the book that challenged my still lingering Catholic connection that like it's man and woman only, and monogamy and family and just all these things. And so like reading that just completely opened my mind to possibility. And so then I was having deep intellectual conversations about relationship dynamics and about sexual preferences and intimacy and all this stuff. And so I would talk to anyone and everyone who would let me talk to them about this. I actually, interestingly enough, my team at the time, we were all commission-based, we were art dealers, and I was the leader. I saw a significant increase in our sales, in our production, and our closeness when I would open up conversations about relationships and sex with my team members. The more that I found out about them and the more that I could support them in that way and have deep conversations with them, the closer they felt to me and the more they wanted to perform for me. and I was taught by men in that role that I wasn't supposed to get too close to my team members because I needed to be the authority. I needed to be the boss, and they couldn't bring their personal stuff into our work environment because here's the line, your personal is over there and your work is over here. And as soon as I blurred the lines, everything got better. It was really weird. And so I started kind of exploring that. Then I dated someone after that introduced me to BDSM. So I read Sex at Dawn, then I read The Ethical Slut. And then I got into a relationship that I had no idea people did those things. And I was beside myself. I couldn't believe that I liked the things that were happening, that I wanted more of the things that were happening, that I had a point in time where I'm like, if this is a depraved, if this means I'm depraved, if this means that I am just some fucked up, I don't know what this means about me, but I'm into it. And basically it just showed me that there's much more to me than I ever thought I knew. And so it was kind of like a well of untapped potential. And so I actually didn't know that what we were doing was BDSM until I started looking into it after. I started like Googling it. And then I started reading books and started like really getting into what's actually present here with dominance and submission dynamics and power control and power exchange rather. And so, yeah, it's funny looking back. It all makes sense looking backwards. Like these are some really interesting dominoes, Alexa. And since then it's so much more, having various mentors in these subject matters and getting into Tantra and then kind of blending the spiritual and lighter aspects of sex and intimacy with the kind of like darker, shadowier stuff. And I love the gray. Like to me, it doesn't have to be one way or the other. But I looked at all of these things as a means to learn about myself. The closer I am to myself, the more I know my opinions are mine and my beliefs are mine. And I choose this, not because someone told me this is the way it's supposed to be, but because I have done the necessary internal work to decide for myself. There's something so powerful about that. And that doesn't mean that I don't go into environments where I'm like, I don't know what I'm doing here, but I have faith in myself. And I think that's super sexy, and I think that that's really attractive in a partner. And I think that that's where all of this goes beyond just sex. It's not, the work that I do and we do with our company is not, let me teach you how to use these toys. Let me teach you how to get into these positions. Let me teach you. It's all the things that you need to know about yourself in order to try all those things and love it. And that gap right there is really big for a lot of people.
Yeah. So, that was amazing. That entire thing was amazing. You've said so much in there that not only did I relate to, but that just kind of blew my mind a little bit because, the undiscovered country, right? And this sort of a theme that I had in my 3 notes on my phone going into this to ask you about because people think they know what sex and intimacy is, but there is this undiscovered country, right, out there that they'll never know unless someone points them in the right direction, unless they come up with sort of like a curiosity that leads them there. And I think you just completely nailed that in a really beautiful statement. I want to ask, when you were reading those books, when you were discovering this place, right? Were you having sexual experiences alongside of it, or was it just reading about being with men and women at the same time, or BDSM, or like what? Because I know you said you had the BDSM experience a little bit later on, but during that discovery phase, was it just you on a cruise ship reading books, or were you finally experimenting like with women, with men and women? And
Yep.
And if you can you talk about the first time you stepped outside your comfort zone and tried something?
I mean, there was a difference, right? There was a difference between when I was like maybe junior, senior in high school and we were playing drinking games and one of them was, I dare you to kiss her. And this was more of I'm on display and I'm doing something for the male gaze. Like, this isn't necessarily, I think I might, it was only after the fact that I was like, maybe I liked that. I'm not sure, but it wasn't for me. It wasn't chosen for me. It wasn't an empowered thing. And I was young, and then I was in a relationship, the one that I mentioned, that I learned all the things that I never want to be okay with myself and with, another person. And oftentimes these were alcohol infused experiences. We were in a sexless relationship. I was very conflicted and hard on myself about it. I blamed myself a lot for it. And so sexless relationship is less than once a month throughout a year. So 11 or less times in a year. And I always felt very, at that point, like I was pretty connected with my sexuality. And so having a partner that I wanted to live life with who didn't want me, very hard, very, very hard to manage and navigate. And so, but I did realize that sexual experiences would happen if they were a threesome. And so I would vie for attention and kind of try to orchestrate and make this situation happen so that I could get the affection and the intimacy and the closeness that I needed in this way that I didn't actually want. And so I, would get into these threesome environments, and they were often alcohol infused, and I didn't want anything, like, it just wasn't a fit. It wasn't really true for me. And so I'm really grateful that eventually I gave it a second chance. Because before, it was never really a thing that was being driven by me from an authentic and aligned place. It was being driven through me, but for other reasons. And so, being introduced to this person who wanted to have these conversations, and then reading some of the books, I got really curious. Like, what could this mean if I intentionally chose it? And so started getting involved and having much higher level of communication, much less alcohol, all these understanding desires and needs and all of that. And then wound up having experiences that were so amazing. And so I'm so grateful that I gave it another chance. And that, and that's a window of time that was very exploratory for me. I wasn't partnered with with my husband. I had the space to try things on, and I'm glad that I did. And so, when as an example, when COVID happened and the world shut down, and Jordan and I were dating at the time, I had a moment, I think everybody kind of had a moment like this, where it's like, what if I never travel again? What if we can never go into public environments again? What if, it's just the all the way out there, what ifs? And I thought, I'm just over 30 years old, and I did a lot. I had a lot of sex. It looked all kinds of different, interesting ways. I went to many countries. I did a lot of traveling. I've developed, I've grown, I've swung the pendulum in many facets in both directions, and have started to find my middle ground, and had this peace, So, and I think just a lot of people don't really get that. And so I would say that's how I am different in some ways. Though I've worked with many couples that have not had their exploratory, sow their wild oats kind of situation, and are in a marriage from very young, but then how do they stay together and get a version of that for themselves? What does it look like if they want to explore, And that's when you say the trolls on the internet, when I talk about consensual non-monogamy, or I talk about open relationships and stuff like that, then sometimes I get the trolls that are like, marriage is supposed to be for this and this and this. And I go, my marriage is not a concrete box I put myself in, Granted, it'd be really interesting if they heard the full picture for us and how we talk about our marriage, because our marriage, we very much treat it as a covenant. We very much treat it as, this is my person and nothing rocks our foundation. And that doesn't mean that we use people to just get our rocks off. We're kind and we're considerate and we're compassionate. And at times we engage with other people. We don't engage sexually, fully sexually, penetratively with other people, but we do run eros. We go to play parties, we go to workshops, we have been completely naked in front of many people. We've done, just in the handful of years that we've been together, a lot of things. And so I feel really good knowing that our particular relationship, that anything is possible. And most people don't understand that that's an option. Anything is possible, but you have to do what's the internal work that you have to do in order for that to be your reality? Because it isn't just anything is possible, but you don't have to do any work for it. It's anything is possible if you actually show up for that thing, So I think I answered your question in there.
No, yeah, you did. And you brought up a bunch of new ones. Yeah, it's important to show up, and it's important to keep showing up, even when it feels like you're exhausted. If you know that's what you want, it's that thing, whether that's a podcast or a relationship. If it's just like, I know that this is what I want, then you have to keep showing up. And I think that's important too. Okay, so your relationship now, what would you classify it as? Because you said, are you in a non-monogamous relationship now that just has certain boundaries and rules, right? Or because you said non-penetrative, this is something fascinating to me. And I love this because, some people, they want to go with their partner to a sex party. They want to go with their partner to like a BDSM dungeon or something. Maybe they want to go to Jared Leto's house. Who knows, right? But they don't necessarily want to be like, well, I'm here and I got my ball gag, and I don't think people realize that those places usually are places of more consent. B, they're usually vetted, and 3, you don't have to do anything that you don't want to. So if you and your partner now are or were whatever having experiences that are sexual without penetrative, what does that look like? And if you wouldn't mind, break down that, because I love that gray, just like you, I love the gray, that little sort of, this is our pocket of whatever.
Yeah, I mean, by most people's viewpoint from the outside looking in, we look like a normal married couple and monogamous couple. And that's typically how we function. We just have interesting extracurricular activities that we get up to once a month-ish. We're going to a cuddle party tonight, which I'm not sure if it's going to turn into anything, but sometimes cuddle parties do. But we're going with, other, to an event that's led by another sex educator that's in this space, and kink educator that's in our space. And it's one of the things that that we're afforded living in Austin now. When we first moved here, there wasn't all that much an option for events and community in the sex positive space. Here, at least it wasn't people that we really vibed with, and it's blossomed. It's truly blossomed over the last few years, which we're really grateful for. But for Jordan and I, we call it monogamish, which is a term coined by Dan Savage. And so for us, what's the most important to us is that we don't get into a relationship where we are assuming of the other person. I've shown myself time and time again that I am very multifaceted. And just when I think I've got a handle on my beliefs and my opinions and all the things, here I am changing. I did, and I'll just throw it out there. I had a window of time becoming a sex educator and having a lot of things become very apparent to me and opening up. I had my little feminist wave that I realized a handful of years in that wasn't serving me in my relationships with men, and wasn't serving me in my business, and was in a lot of ways having me just live life through a negative lens. And so I made some really big changes with with regards to how I wanted to operate in life and in relationship and all of that. And that was huge. That was huge. But my original comings on of I would say the feminist wave were oh my gosh, this is so empowering. So I have to give myself permission to change. And I have to give my partner permission to change as well, to change his mind, to change his beliefs, to change who he thinks he is, all of those things. And the sooner that I can understand that and agree to that and respect that, the more at peace we're going to be. Because the alternative is that we get into a relationship and I decide to like you just as you are, and you better not change, and we're promising each other forever. So the thing that feels really safe in my relationship with my husband now is that we know how to speak to each other. And we understand how to really be in intimacy. And that's not physical or sexual intimacy I'm talking about. I'm talking about closeness. I'm talking about vulnerability. And there's nothing that he could come to me and say, I've been thinking about this thing that has to do with, it could be anything, that I would meet with offense, because it isn't about me. If he's considering something for himself, he's not actually out in the world doing it. I don't think, he's saying he's considering it. If I'm a safe enough place, if I do my work, he'll share those things with me ahead of time. If I'm critical, if I'm not open, if I'm disrespectful, if I'm running too much masculine energy, if I'm not surrendering to our partnership, all these things, then I'm not safe. And he's not going to share those things with me ahead of time. And that's not what I want. So, and vice versa. You know what I mean? And so we've created a foundation where, it might take many, many, many conversations, and it might take breakdowns, and it might take whatever, but anything is possible. And I think we both believe that. And so, like, what does our relationship look like now compared to 5.5 years ago? 5.5 years ago, I think we were more open, but we hadn't really figured out our true feelings around it. So, anyone who's going to explore in this space, like, you're going to fuck up. But it's not really a fuck up. It's a breakdown and then a breakthrough. It's a rupture and then a repair. It's a stronger thing on the other side, if you choose for it to be. And we also have never done our relationship alone. We've always had mentors. We've always had coaches. We've always had community. We've always consistently done things in order to grow. And both of us are, in personal development. So what it looks like now is, like, recently, or actually this was exactly a year ago. We've done this twice so far, but exactly a year ago, Jordan was the MC and lead production of a big event. He was, we hosted a festival. We ran a micro festival, us and our friends, and he just poured himself into this event, this 3-day event. And he was completely depleted. And so to surprise him, I hired a sex worker, and her and I collaborated on an event, on an experience for him, where he could feel loved and he could feel poured into, and he didn't have to do a damn thing. And so, was there some kind of sexual component? Yes, but there was no penetrative sex. But she's not our girlfriend, and I didn't have any kind of sexual relation with her. And so, what would you classify that as? Like, we are committed to the foundation of our partnership, but that doesn't mean exclusively I'm the only one that ever touches him, and as far as me as well. So it's fluid, I would say. It's seasonal. Right now I'm pregnant. We're not fucking around. I don't even want to be touched right now. I'm so irritated with, like, I'm about to cross over into the second trimester, but, like, I'm just, like, not feeling great. And so, but at the same time, we're going to a cuddle party tonight. So I've got to be, familiar with my boundaries and all those things. But the last play party we went to, was 6 weeks ago, and I was 6 weeks pregnant. And we had sex at that party, but we didn't have sex with anybody else. And we were witnessed by other people, but the bond was still just between the two of us. So, like, people were participating, but they weren't directly involved. They weren't touching us. You know what I mean? So I just think that people get caught up with, if I'm going to go to a swinger party, or if I'm going to go to a play party, then they put this impossible pressure on themselves to participate in some way beyond just viewing. They put this impossible pressure on themselves. Like, what does this mean about me? And I have to do these things. And they take a couple shots going in to try and loosen up, when don't go if you got to do that. Like, don't go if you got it. If that's where we're at, like, make sure you can go without that. And then if you do choose to do that, like, that's, you're excited about it.
Yeah.
So
yeah, we are pro shot on this program, on this podcast. So, like, hopefully in a year, Tito's will come around to their senses. But you're right, because those things are add-ons. And again, I think being in the gray is beautiful. It's my favorite place to be as a person, really, is in the gray. And I think it sounds like you guys have a hard line of no penetrative sex boundary, right? But other than that, it's sort of fluid, like you said. And I just think that's fucking gorgeous. That's incredible. And I hope that people are really taking that away from what you're saying, that it can look like whatever the fuck you want it to look like, as long as you're willing to work for it.
Yeah. And like some hard stuff's probably going to happen.
Yeah.
And some challenging
Yeah.
things are going to happen. And who you become on the other side of a hard thing is really beautiful. I think people look at it and they hold their breath, or they choose it like their partner wants it more than they do. And all those things are not reasons. You don't go into a relationship like this and have a level of openness like this for your partner and not for yourself. You both have to be on board with it. But thank you for that, for saying that about our relationship. But, and the thing is, like, this is where we're at now, and it could change in 5 years. I expect on some level for it to change in 5 years. I don't know what that's going to look like, when we've got 4-year-olds and maybe a 2-year-old or a 1-year-old, like, I don't,
Sure.
we're going to be trying to have sex with each other. I can't imagine, and we'll see, check back in with me in a handful of years.
I can't wait. I definitely want to, cause we're getting towards the end of the episode and I have some important things on the end that I want to fire at you, and you can do what you want with, but I do want to highlight your content because, again, you make content, the quality, first of all, is incredible. And B, you tell a story, you teach something, and you're present, and it all looks 4K. Somehow you pull all of that off in these reels that you do. And I'm just going to like run down a few of the latest. Like, what does your sex life say about your relationship? Is it bad to masturbate while you're in a relationship? Signs your relationship is ready for a threesome. The reason sex is healing. I mean, this is good shit. And I want to thank you for doing that. And I want to encourage everybody to go to your Instagram and really run down all of this real content, because it's like some of my favorite stuff on the internet right now. So I definitely want to do that. Let's see, we can get through this. So, okay. I have this game. It's called The Burner. It's like 10, 12 questions. They're kind of silly, but kind of like wacky. You can go through The Burner. You can say, no, I'm out of here, dude, whatever. And then I have one final question for you.
Okay. Let's see what happens. I won't be long-winded this time.
No, you're great. You're great. Be as long-winded as you want. No. Come on. Okay. Question 1 of The Burner. Name something you wish men would stop doing.
Assuming that a woman, in some ways, assuming that a woman is just like a man. What I mean is hormonally, that when you get a woman and she's feeling super fiery and frisky and sexy and all those things, and then a week later she's not feeling that something's wrong with her. And so I wish that they would stop, it's like assuming consistency, which is a very masculine thing. And it's assuming that a woman is not changing every day.
Beautiful answer. Name something you wish women would stop doing.
Saying yes when they mean no.
Great. Another beautiful answer. Name something you wish you would stop doing. They get a little harder, then they get really stupid for a second.
Yeah, sure.
So like...
I'm already pretty good at this, but I think I can be better, especially in this season. Being even more discerning with my time. So that I would stop doing overcommitting. Yeah,
for sure. Well, we got you here on the podcast.
It just took like a long time. So
hey, you're here. That's all that matters. Yeah. Favorite guilty pleasure does not have to be sexual, but it can be.
Erotic fantasy novels.
Fucking love that.
I love like magical sex, like fairies and vampires and werewolves and like yeah.
People don't fucking answer that way very often. I love that you did. That's a great answer. Oh, yeah. Name a person alive or dead. This should be interesting with you. Name a person alive or dead. You can have sex with this person. You can hang out with this person. The catch is that after 24 hours with this person, they vanish and you never see them again. So it could be like Abraham Lincoln or like
wow.
whoever you want.
My husband is listening to a biography on Abraham Lincoln right now, and he's kind of obsessed with him. So as you say Abraham Lincoln, I'm like, Jordan would probably say Abraham Lincoln. Okay, dead or alive that I would want to hang out with.
I mean, you could bang them too. It just depends. Like I give people the option. Oh, we're just hanging out. Oh, we're having sex. Like
I don't know.
Said Adam Sandler, and I'm like, are you banging Adam Sandler? She's like, oh yeah, I'm banging. I'm like, all right.
I don't, that one's for me, I don't know, really hard. Cause I kind of want to, this might sound like super cheesy. And this is maybe not even in your terms, your conditions here for this question. I'd like to talk to my mom, but before she had me, like younger. I'd like to like hang out with my younger mother and just like talk with her and learn about her. Yeah. That's like I don't know. You're asking me this question. I'm like, but I'm trapped with my family where I'm like, I want to understand them more.
Yeah. No, it's great that you said that because when we get off this recording, I'll tell you something personal that relates to that. You'll appreciate it. Backstreet Boys or NSYNC?
NSYNC.
Okay.
My first concert was NSYNC opening for Janet Jackson. I was like 11.
Oh, wow.
I was like 11.
Holy shit.
My mom won tickets. My mom won tickets on the radio.
That's fucking amazing. Yeah. Spice Girls or the Pussycat Dolls?
Who are the Pussycat Dolls? Oh my God. I told you my age, right?
Well, it's the burner. So can you briefly tell us one of your craziest sex stories? Anything that comes to mind. Doesn't matter.
My craziest sex story.
We got to put some fluff in here, It's like.
So I have an episode on That Sex Chick on our podcast, which is like episode 2 maybe. And it's called How BDSM Changed My Life Forever. And so if you want like the real rundown, it's like one of my highest ranked episodes too, because I just gonna go into detail about my first introduction sexual experiences that were BDSM. And I just, so it's just the makings of an erotic novel. Like the guy that I was seeing was a staff captain. He's now a captain on cruise ships. And so he had a lot of power and was just a kinky fuck. Like he just could tie and he had this authority and this dominance and he had the accent. It was like Italian, but he learned English in England. And so he had this really interesting accent and he just like knew how to do all these things. Everything from like cuffs on the bed to tying to some like anal experiences that I'm like, I didn't even know this was a thing. I didn't know any of this. So if you want like the dirty, like the real on that, then you can listen to that episode, but I'll just kind of like read it there. Yeah.
No, perfect. Flaming hot or probably not. So are you a fan of the flaming hot snacks and shit? Or are you not?
No, I'm from New Orleans and we've got lots of spice down there and I just never was into it.
Okay. Best kind of music to bang to?
So it's a couple, I've got like 2 genres. I've got lots of playlists, BT Dub, if you look me up on Spotify. I like the grimy, slow, sensual bass. But then I also like old school, like Pretty Ricky and, I don't know why Pretty Ricky's the first that grinds with me. That comes up first and like some Lil Wayne and some, just like R&B rap, just like kind of grimy rap. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
Either
some
one of those.
D'Angelo, perhaps.
Sure.
In there.
Yeah. I mean, if I pulled it up, like the shit from Magic Mike 2 album, At All Things, has some really great music.
Yeah. No, that's good shit. It's good shit. Final question for you, Alexa in the burner. Do you have a Finsta account? Do you have a fake Instagram that you use to?
No. Actually,
All right.
sort of. That's kind of not true. My dog has an Instagram account. And
Okay.
so I don't do anything with it. I used to think I would, but I'm like busy with other stuff. And so occasionally, if I want to look at something, but I don't want the person to know that I looked at it, my dog will look at it. That doesn't happen often, but
that still counts.
But
That still counts.
It really doesn't happen often, but it's there if I need it.
Beautiful answer. Okay. So final question, on Sex Party. Having someone like you on the show who's an expert, someone I've been dying to have on, now in season 2, and here you are. So I have to ask you this to close out the episode. What is the biggest crisis? What is the biggest issue facing sex, intimacy, and relationships happening right now that you see?
Okay. 2 things came out, but so the first one is crisis wise. I think people are bored, and how that boredom winds up playing out, because our world is so it's so easily, things are so easily accessible. I realized I'm going to run out of prenatal vitamins, and it can be here tomorrow. You know what I mean? I don't even have to go and change anything about my day, and this thing arrives to me. And for convenience has led to, in some ways, boredom. And people spend so much time on their phones. They spend so much time connecting with people on the internet that are not actually in front of them. And I think, especially in long-term relationships, people get into the motion of life and living and children and schedules and all of that, and they lose their luster for life. And I think that with that, there's a lack of purpose and there's a lack of fulfillment. And sometimes, when I think of people who cheat and there's infidelity, it's usually because they are, they're feeling the pressures of this lackluster life, or this, the heaviness of boredom, or I want more. And so they do this thing to feel alive, and to feel desired and all of that. And so what I think crisis wise is people are bored, and how that shows up is in all of these really unhealthy ways. And so, crisis for relationship, I think, is for people to zoom out and again, take a look at life and figure out how to take responsibility and to actually do work on having a relationship and a life that's really inspiring to them, that they're proactive with, life that they're interacting with versus life that's just happening to them. And that can be super challenging. And then kind of just touching on the other thing with youth and with people today, and I'm not talking about old school, just relationships, traditional relationships. I touched on it earlier. I think it's people being overly sensitive. Everything's offensive, and they switching identities every other day, and I think people a lot of times have a hard time settling with regards to who they truly are inside versus trying to fit in some other box, where they feign community or feign connection, and it isn't actually real. And then how that plays out, next thing you know, we're in our 30s and don't feel like we're living meaningful lives, this is generally, and aren't partnered and don't have families and are unsure what the next steps are going to be. And I just think that's really challenging for people,
Alexa Bowditch, thank you so much for being on Sex Party. Let's tell them all where they can find you, where they can, listen to all your podcasts, buy every single course that you offer.
Yeah. Find me, That Sex Chick. And That Sex Chick on Instagram and pretty much every place on the internet these days. Our podcast is That Sex Chick. And our website is sexandlove.co. And so, but if you really find me on Instagram, the link that's in the bio, that's usually all the things that we've got going on. We have lots of cool freebies, ways to explore your sexuality, kind of low barrier to entry that doesn't feel super scary. And then also we've got some edgier things that are available for people as well. So yeah, just find me on IG.
Well, this has been an honor for me, and I appreciate you like finally coming and doing this episode with me. I'd love to have you back. I already have an idea, something you said that was like, oh my God, that whatever. So now I'm gonna start the whole harassment wheel over again. So whatever. But thank you so much. It really, really, really means a lot.
I appreciate you, Dustin. And just so you know, you're overly qualified for this. You're a human living a human experience, having your expression in sex, and these conversations are meaningful. And in some ways, I think you're overqualified because people want to hear from real people, not just the experts. So kudos to you for this project.
Well, that means so fucking much to me. Thank you so much. Talk soon. Huge thank you to my guest, Alexa Bowditch, for being with me in the 75th episode of Sex Party. Go check out everything she is doing. Go check out her Instagram. It's fucking awesome. Check out the website. Sign up for some stuff. Listen to her podcast. She's such a G. She's such a pro. I was so happy to have her here. If you want to see her again, I have already pitched a return episode. We're going to make that happen. It's going to be a doozy. But if you want more guests like Alexa, if you want 75 more episodes of Sex Party, if you want 7,500 more episodes of Sex Party, there's a couple different ways you can show that love, that appreciation, that desire, that need for more. If you are listening on platforms like Apple and Spotify, you can subscribe to the show. That's the most important. You can leave a rating. You can leave a review. If you're watching on YouTube, if you're watching on YouTube, I love you. I see you. I appreciate you. You can subscribe to the channel. Most important part. We've already established that. You could like the video. You could like all the videos. You could leave comments on all the videos too. I am always available in the DMs on Instagram. And as always, I will see you right back here next week.
Thanks for listening. The party continues next week. Click subscribe and let's make this a regular thing. Follow the show on Instagram and Twitter at SexPartyFM. Follow Dustin at Dustin Rybka.